Hi, I'm going to talk to you this evening about the Human Relations School of Management. I'll just give you a brief overview to help you understand the readings, and then I'll give another separate video lecture talking about the Hawthorne studies, the experiments that were done. But let me just give you a sense of how to understand human relations. So it represents a huge departure from what we've been looking at before. We were looking at bureaucracy, we were looking at the scientific approach to management from Taylor's perspective. And the human relations perspective is very interesting, and again represents a really huge shift conceptually and also in practice, in that it's the first time that employees and the social, the interactive, the personal motivations of individuals are taken into account. So remember, before, it's all about equipment, it's all about the technology, it's all about the manufacturing process and how efficiency can be improved from that point of view. And now all of a sudden, the human relations perspective says we have to take into account the worker's point of view. We have to look at how individuals, or the situation of the individual worker, can be optimized. And it's not only about the equipment, it's not only about commanding and controlling situations, but it's also about the individual's motivation and initiative. And I think you can well relate to that in terms of, if you think about students and, why do students do better? Why do some students do better than other students? Okay, yes, maybe some have more intelligence, or maybe some have more time on their hands where they can study. So there are all these factors that might be fixed. But I think in reality we can say that it has to do a lot with initiative and motivation. So when people want to succeed, you can be not a great writer, or you could be somebody who's not an excellent communicator. But if you actually want to succeed and you have a vision of being, a supervisor, a manager, a CFO one day, if that's your direction, if that's your hope, your dream, your orientation, then likely that you're going to take the steps necessary to achieve that. So if you don't do so well on assignments, you're not just going to accept it. You're going to say, okay, what do I have to do to improve my writing? What do I have to do to make myself stand apart from the thousands of other people who are going to apply for the same job as I'm applying for? So if you have the initiative, you may have a lot less intelligence, you may have a lot less privilege, like your family doesn't have the money to give you to study and to have coaches and tutors and whatever else you might need, or whatever else somebody else might have. But that person who has that, if they don't really have the drive, the initiative, the determination, they might not succeed, and you might. So that's a really important factor, and that's really basically what's behind the human relations thought, that people are determining how successful they're going to be in terms of the kind of work they're performing. And it has a lot to do with their psychological state, the kind of relationships that they have in the workplace with management. So if management just treats you like a machine and you're not given any special attention, consideration, you're just treated as somebody, like a commodity that can be replaced, then are you going to have the drive, the initiative, the enthusiasm to perform your task effectively? And so human relations looks at that point of view and says we need to think about the worker and how the worker feels. And so a lot of the experimentation that's done later during the Hawthorne studies has to do with the psychological environment and manipulation of that environment so that optimal conditions for enhanced performance can be reached. So again, the first time the social, the human, the interactive part of the work process is taken into account, and not just technology tools, not just the management perspective and the production kinds of initiatives. It's now, how does the worker feel? Under which situations is a worker most productive? So again, asking the worker, looking at the worker's point of view comes into play and is very important in this theory. So that's a big shift. And after that, you have humanistic management, you have other approaches, which collaborative approaches where you actually ask the worker to help make decisions, and it's a more team approach. So that's something that comes later, but this opens up the door for that consideration, which before had never been considered. So think about the studies that Taylor did with the pig iron handlers and Schmidt. Nobody would ever think to care if Schmidt was content, if Schmidt felt that things were, if Schmidt could have been inspired under different conditions to do more and to achieve and accomplish more. But this is an approach which now says we've got to look at that, and that's going to increase efficiency, it's going to increase profit, and it's going to make the workplace a lot better for not only management but for employees. So we'll look at the critique of human relations, because of course it's a perspective that is put into place to enhance management, and that's basically what the critique of it is. But what's important to understand is that shift in orientation. So we will continue talking about the Hawthorne experiments, but just when you read over it, just keep that in mind and keep comparing it to Weber's concept of bureaucracy, and now again the human element being brought in, which hadn't been in place before. Thank you.